This is Technic, and these are 4 of the best Snapdragon 865 powered camera smartphones on the planet. Up first, we have the Oppo Find X2 Pro with a 48 megapixel IMX689 sensor with 4:1 pixel binning, a 13 megapixel periscope sensor with a 48 megapixel ultra wide lens. We also have optical image stabilization here and a 32 megapixel selfie snapper. The OnePlus 8 Pro comes paired with the same 48 megapixel main sensor as well as a 48 megapixel ultra wide sensor, same as the Find X2 Pro with an 8 megapixel telephoto, 5 megapixel color filter, optical image stabilization, and a 16 megapixel selfie snapper. The Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra comes paired with a 108 megapixel ISOCELL HM1 bright sensor with 9:1 pixel binning, 48 megapixel periscope lens, 12 megapixel ultra wide, and a 3D TOF lens, optical image stabilization of course, and a 40 megapixel selfie snapper too. We have, last but not least, the Xiaomi Mi 10 Pro with a 108 megapixel ISOCELL HMX bright lens with a 4:1 pixel binning, 8 megapixel long telephoto, 12 megapixel short telephoto lens, 20 megapixel ultra wide, optical image stabilization, and a 20 megapixel selfie snapper to boot. These are incredible devices. I cannot wait to share the results with you. This is Technic, and without further ado, let's go. We're going to start over here with some main lens shots, 108 megapixel, 2 phones on the right, 48 megapixels, 2 phones on the left, and then we're going to go down to cropped shots. You guys have asked me to slow down quite a bit over here, so I have left the pictures on the screen for a lot longer. I have also maxed out the screen here so that all you see are the pictures of these devices. You've also asked for more cropped shots, which I have brought to you guys now. I am doing 10 times crop over here, so we're going from an 18 times to 180 times on most of the devices here. As you guys can see, when we do go into the cropped shots, you can see a lot more details on the 2 phones on the left as opposed to the 2 phones on the right, though the Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra is doing a superb job with that 108 megapixel HM1 sensor as opposed to the Xiaomi's HMX sensor. It does a much better job at retaining detail here, especially when cropping in. Looking at the photos from a distance, I must say that all of them look absolutely fantastic, and that is why that I have suggested that these are 4 of the best Snapdragon 865 powered camera phones on the planet. They all look superb over here, and now we're going to move on to the bin shots. So all of them do 4:1 pixel binning, though the Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra is the exception with 9:1 pixel binning, going down to 12 megapixels for a greater megapixel count, or a greater detailed per pixel over here as compared to the rest of them. You can clearly see it when we do show that bin pixel over there. There's a lot more color reproduction in the S20 Ultra's camera over here. There is a lot more of the colors shooting around the screen over here when you go to the bin shots on the S20 Ultra as opposed to the rest of the devices, though when you're using its main raw sensor of 108 megapixels, the others seem to retain more detail than the S20 Ultra. As you can see in this shot over here, slightly low lit over here, but as soon as we go into that bin shot, things look slightly better on the Samsung as opposed to the other devices. All of them look pretty great with raw shots. Once again, pixel binning, things are brighter and more detailed on the Samsung over here. Moving on to the last shot that we're going to be comparing a main to a bin shot over here. Look at the ripples in the water over here. The detail in the Samsung is astonishing. Moving on to the ultra wide over here, we have 48 megapixels on the 2 phones on the left, 12 megapixel for the Samsung, and 20 megapixel for the Xiaomi. We're going to be showing the cropped sensors over here since we have such high megapixel lenses on the Find X2 Pro and the OnePlus 8 Pro over there. So when we crop in, you can clearly see that we retain a lot more detail in the 2 phones on the left as opposed to the 2 phones on the right. But I must say that I'm pretty impressed with the Xiaomi's 20 megapixel ultra wide sensor over here, but the Samsung completely blows the shot out when zooming in to a cropped shot over there. Looking at them overall from an outer perspective over there, just clear ultra wide, you can see that all of them look absolutely fantastic, though I must say that the Oppo Find X2 Pro is actually doing the best job with color accuracy here. They all look pretty fantastic, but the Samsung does tend to blur quite a bit when you go into that cropped shot, with the best retaining of detail being the OnePlus 8 Pro over here alongside the Oppo Find X2 Pro. The last shot that we have over here with the cropped image, look at the ripples in the water as well as the leaves. The Xiaomi is pretty much disappearing with the leaves over there. Now we're going to move back into the ultra wide over here and then show the binned ultra wide for the left hand side over here being the Oppo Find X2 Pro and the OnePlus 8 Pro. Pro. As you guys can see, the quality in the Oppo and the OnePlus is quite significant as opposed to the two devices on the right hand side due to that higher megapixel count, as well as the pixel binning happening to 12 megapixels after the raw shot taken. You can see a lot more detail in the shots as opposed to the other two devices on the right, being the Samsung and the Xiaomi. The Oppo and the OnePlus 8 Pro are absolutely flaunting it as opposed to the other two devices here. A lot more color in the shots over here and a lot more detail too, though I must say that I do like the lighting effects that you see on the S20 Ultra. The Xiaomi seems like a bit of a mixed bag here, with a bit of light blowing into the shots, a bit too much if you ask me. Moving on from this, we're going to be shooting into the total max zoom of all of these sensors as soon as we finish with the last cropped shot over here. Now we're going to be shooting into a binned ultra wide shot here, as you guys can see, moving on to 1x with the bin shot, and now we're going to go into 2x optical for all of them. Take a look at the ripples in the water over here, the Samsung retaining the most amount of detail with its wonderful 48 megapixel periscope lens. Of course, 48 megapixels and periscope means that you're going to see a lot more detail closer up. We have 100x max on the Samsung, 50 on the Xiaomi, 60 on the Oppo, and just 30 on the OnePlus. Going back to an ultra wide shot over here, we're using binned on the two phones on the left, binned on all of them with the main pics over here, 2x optical across the board. Once again, look at the ripples on the Samsung. You can see quite a difference over there, a lot more detail, especially in the trees. The Oppo seems to be the softest and the Xiaomi seems to be the sharpest when you are zooming into the photos over here. 100x is completely unusable on the Samsung at that mode. I think that the Oppo does the best job at 60x. It has found its true sweet spot. Moving on from this, we're going to do one more zoomed, well, two more zoomed after this, just to show you guys the wonderful zoom captures that we get on all of these devices. Moving through to this wonderful mirror that you guys can see over here, you're seeing a lot more detail on the Samsung, but as soon as we shoot to 30x, I actually see the best amount of detail in the Oppo Find X2 Pro, though the highest zoom on the Samsung, of course, with the Oppo being a close second with 60x. Last zoom shot over here, looking down the street, we're going to focus on a number plate way far in the distance over here, shooting to that true 100x zoom on the Samsung and that wonderful 60 and 50 on the Oppo and Xiaomi respectively. We're focusing on the Audi over here, as you guys can see, or Audi as most of you would say overseas. As you guys can see, we are still seeing much of the number plates on the Oppo and the Samsung over here, with the OnePlus and Xiaomi completely blurred out, which kind of sucks. Moving on to a normal shot over here and then going to the depth effect, we are using the 5 megapixel color filter for depth effect on the OnePlus, and we are using the Xiaomi's 2x optical zoom 12 megapixel camera telephoto lens for the depth effect here, which in my opinion looks the best. Going close up, looking at macro shots over here, I think that the Oppo and OnePlus do a fantastic job. The OnePlus really outshining the others over here, especially when looking at this little flower over here. This really is a tiny flower, and the two phones on the right completely blur it out. Moving on to video over here, all of them have the capabilities of 4K 60, but only the two phones on the right hand side have the capability of 8K at 24 and 30 frames per second respectively, though the Xiaomi is 6K upscaled, unfortunately. Once again, all of them have 4K 60 frames per second. I must say that the Xiaomi has the worst optical image stabilization over here. It is not very stable, and I think that the Samsung is doing the best job when it comes to stabilization. We'll get to a true stabilization test in a minute. Now we're shooting onto 1080p 60 frames per second. Once again, image stabilization on the Xiaomi is horrid. I cannot believe what I'm seeing right now. The OnePlus and the Oppo and the Samsung are doing a great job. Now we're shooting onto ultra wide. Strange thing, the Oppo Find X2 Pro caps at 27 frames per second at 4K. The OnePlus 4K 60 frames per second ultra wide, and the Xiaomi 4K 60, which is great, with the Samsung being limited to 30 frames per second. Once again, ultra wide over here, 1080p across the board. We have the Oppo at 54 frames per second. Once again, very strange. 60 on the OnePlus and 60 on the Xiaomi, with 30 capped on the Samsung, which really sucks. Now we're going to shoot onto stabilization over here. Stabilization mode's off at the current moment over here. Not looking too great. I must say that all of them look absolutely fantastic now with stabilization modes on, with the Samsung being the best. An interesting thing here is that we have cinema modes and full modes on the OnePlus and Samsung respectively, though we can shoot the OnePlus at 4K resolution, which is great at 60 frames per second, where the Samsung is capped at 1080p 30 frames per second there. Shooting onto night mode, we're going to go into night over here, as you can see, I think the greatest amount of detail that you can see here is the OnePlus, though it does have quite a bit of granules when shooting onto night mode. I think things get the most bright on the Samsung, and it retains the most amount of details in most of the shots, though the Samsung tends to not handle light very well. Though when you turn on the night mode, it doesn't handle light very well, but it does pick up a lot more detail. The Samsung and Xiaomi, with their 108 megapixel lenses binning down over there, you can see that light is not handled very well on either devices, and I think that both of the shots on the Oppo and OnePlus look a hell of a lot better than the ones on the Samsung and the Xiaomi in this particular situation. We're going to go for a zoom over here from ultra wide over here. Ultra wide night on all of them except for the Xiaomi. Unfortunately, Xiaomi looks terrible. We also have tripod mode on the Oppo Find X2 Pro, which looks fantastic, though it can get blurry at times. We have 1x over here, so bin shot. Then we moving on to night mode over here. I think it looks the best on the Oppo once again. And we have that tripod mode, slightly fuzzy on the Oppo, but it looks really fantastic when brightening up the shot over here. 2x optical on all of them. And we have 2x night on all of them except for the OnePlus over here, which is lacking night mode when zooming in, where all of them can actually shoot night mode up to 10x zoom except for the OnePlus 8 Pro. All of them have wonderful zoom capabilities over here, though I really think that the Oppo and Samsung shine when 10x night, especially the Samsung. There is no 30x and max zoom night mode for any of the devices over here, though they're all pretty garbage if you ask me. Moving on to night video footage over here, all of them look pretty dark. I think the most amount of detail is picked up on the Xiaomi, and the brightest shot is indeed picked up on the Oppo Find X2 Pro, arguably the best amount of detail as well over there. 4K 60 frames per second on all of them, looks pretty decent. Once again, the two phones on the outer skirts over here, being the Oppo and the Xiaomi, tend to be the brightest and picking up the most amount of detail. The OnePlus is really lacking in night videography over here, as well as the Samsung definitely being the worst in this respect over here. I must say it's not doing a great job at the moment. Ultra wide is pretty much a mixed bag across all devices. I think the OnePlus and the Xiaomi are the brightest over here, but don't necessarily pick up the most amount of detail, and the Xiaomi is just horrendous when it comes to picking up light. It tends to really blow up the shot when picking up any amount of light when recording video in an ultra wide perspective over here. Moving on to the final shots that we have here, it will be cinema modes once again on the OnePlus and Samsung respectively. You can see how much better it looks on the OnePlus over there. And shooting onto the selfie cameras over here, we have a 40 megapixel selfie snap on the Samsung. We're going to be using a bin shot 6.5 megapixels over here, and now 2x portrait mode on all of them. I think that edge detection looks the worst on the OnePlus when we do shoot over to portrait mode, as you guys can see over there. I think portrait mode is pretty much a mixed bag on all of them. Edge detection is pretty bad on all of them, though it must be the best on the Xiaomi and on the Oppo Find X2 Pro. No biasness happening over here, guys. This test did take me a hell of a long time to do, but guys, we're going to shoot over to video on the selfie cameras very soon, so please enjoy and let me know what you guys think in the comment section, which has the best selfie video and audio recording right after this. Let me know what you guys think of the audio and video quality on the Oppo Find X2 Pro. Let me know what you guys think of the video and audio quality of the OnePlus 8 Pro. Let me know what you guys think of the selfie video recording on the S20 Ultra. Let me know what you guys think of the audio and the video quality of the Mi 10 Pro's selfie video recording. Very mixed bag over there when it comes to selfie video recording, though I do appreciate Samsung with its 4K 60 frames per second selfie video recording. Selfies at night don't look the best, with selfie night mode being on all of them except the OnePlus and the Xiaomi. We have flash mode on all of them, being the best on the Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra. Videography at night doesn't look great on any of the devices. I must say the Xiaomi probably looks the brightest over here. It is a bit of a mixed bag once again, but honestly, all of them do a superb job. The Oppo Find X2 Pro seems to smooth things out quite a lot, picks up the most amount of details, and gets really bright at night. I really do appreciate the work that Oppo have done with the Find X2 Pro. The OnePlus 8 Pro is a bit of a mixed bag if you ask me. It has its pros and cons. I think it picks up a lot of detail during the day. It lacks a bit at night, but I'm sure this will improve with later software updates. The S20 Ultra has been around for quite a while now, and the 100x space zoom is pretty much a major pro for the phone, though quite blurry close up with that 100x zoom. Still takes a spectacular day and night shots with videography indeed. The Mi 10 Pro, on the other hand, does not do the best best time at night or in the day. I think the worst out of the test, but still holds its own for its grace price point. Guys, let me know what you think in the comment section down below, which should be crowned king. This is Technic. I hope that you enjoyed this video as much as I did making it, and I'll see you in the next one.